Masterpiece Arms isn't a name you think of with pistols traditionally. It's been a bolt gun or a precision rifle chassis type company. A couple years ago, they acquired Freedom Gun Works and they spun up the DS9 lineup of pistols. At the end of 2021, MPA brought on David Lyle to head up their DS9 line of pistols. David is a Grandmaster shooter in USPSA Open Division, and in June of 2022, IDPA is adopting a new rule set that allows double-stacked 1911s with bull barrels to compete in Carry Optics and ESP. So Masterpiece Arms obviously made a gun to break the division. And the gun is ridiculously nice, except for the name. DS9 is kind of an unimaginative name. Like, why couldn't you call it like the Aardvark or something cool like that? Still a great pistol, but like Aardvark, I mean, Aardvark.
The Aardvark, architect of the bush, builder of dens used by many other creatures.
So we're going to take a look at the Masterpiece Arms Aardvark. Are you ready? Stand by. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel, the only gun channel here on YouTube that's like easing into bed from the top rope. I'm David, and this is the DS9 from Masterpiece Arm, IDPA compliant. As we touched on in the introduction, this is a wide body 1911 style pistol. You can't call it a 2011 because STI will sue you, or Staccato, or whatever they're calling themselves now. And I think most gun guys, if they really get honest with themselves, will tell you straight up, like, if you're a pistol guy, the 2011 or wide body 1911 is the ultimate experience in shooting. And why that is because the ergonomics are amazing, the triggers are completely unmatched. They are the standard everything is compared to. They shoot ridiculously soft, they are ridiculously accurate, but they require an obscene amount of material to make. They require tons and tons of hand fitting, and as a result, they also carry staggering price tags, and this one is no exception, but it's still a good value for what this gun represents. We'll touch on that later. So this is technically a competition gun, and I am a competition shooter. So we're gonna do the gun review piece. We're gonna talk about how the gun shoots, why the wide body 2011 is probably the best gun for IDPA. So let's talk about just the experience of handling a gun like this. Now, this isn't one you're gonna find in the gun store or anything like that. Like most of these, if you know somebody who's got one, or you're just gonna end up sending them a check and they're gonna send you a gun, and that'll be the first time you ever experience the gun. So that said, the experience when you pick it up, first of all, the grip is very well sculpted for my LXL size hands. I absolutely love the way the gun situates in the hand. They have a scalloped magwell at the bottom that allows those of us with fat palms, of which I have, to sit on the gun much, much better. The gun, since it's made for IDPA, has a skinny magwell with skinny ambi safeties that are activated super positively. So all the controls are just like you'd want for a high-end pistol, and that is to say super positive engage and disengage on the safety. The trigger is absolutely insane. This one came in on my scale at 2 pounds, and the take up is like resting your finger on a mouse, and then it's like a glass rod snapping as it drops the hammer. The reset similarly is bonkers. It's like releasing a mouse button, and there's about as much travel. At 2 pounds, that is a very light trigger, and if you're not accustomed to shooting light triggers, then you're gonna wanna get accustomed to it before you go, but it's set up exactly like you'd want a competition trigger. My open guns are set up at 1.5 pounds, which is typically what people do for USPSA, so 2 pounds is super reasonable. It's absolutely bonkers. So the slide to frame fit is absolutely insane. There is a tiny, tiny bit of wiggle at the rear of the slide. If I move the slide, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's just a tiny little bit of play, which is enough to where you don't have to shoot the gun in. It was broken in basically out of the box. The gun was new as it was sent to me, and it is a T&E gun, and I'll be making the hard decision of sending a check or sending a gun back. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna enjoy my time with the gun. But the gun fit is absolutely bonkers. It has a bull barrel, and what a bull barrel means is I'm gonna point a gun at you, don't freak out, you're just a camera. But you can see that the barrel is super duper thick, and this does a couple things. It's adding a bunch of non-reciprocating mass, but more importantly, it's getting rid of the barrel bushing. But it means the barrel has to be fit to the slide in order to produce accuracy. The result is a gun that is insanely accurate, but it also makes the gun softer shooting, which we'll talk about here in a moment. The actual aesthetics I love. In fact, I really like this. They call this a butler cut at the front. Like typically these types of guns have a frame that runs all the way to the end of the slide, but to make weight for IDPA, they cut it back and gave it a short frame. and the result is just a more elegant looking pistol, but you still have 4 rail slots with a full 1913 rail. The aesthetics of the slide are absolutely brilliant. Now, it is a big slab-sided gun. The roll marks on the Masterpiece arms are super faint. You have to kind of squint to see them. There's nothing on this side. Now, out of the box, when you buy one of these guns, you got a couple of options. It's either going to come with a iron sight that you can remove and buy an additional sight plate to mount the optical sight, and YouTube, this is an optical sight, which is okay by your rules. This particular one has co-witness irons baked in, so there is a good lower third co-witness through the optic window for me, which they're blacked out sights, so it's very easy to kind of ignore them. I didn't even see them when I was shooting the match that I shot the gun in. It has a flat top slide with none of the serrations, which makes it look kind of cool because it gives it sort of a luster as you turn it around, and the DLC coating like really has a nice like subtle luster to it that I really dig. The front serrations are absolutely brilliant, but more important, they're functional, and that's because competition shooters end up racking the slide in front of the ejection port. So the fastest way to load a gun is to seat the magazine, run the action, and build a grip. And as a result, this is super grippy. In fact, the rear serrations aren't quite as grippy as the front serrations, which are deeper. So the more you know. The grip, let's talk about this grip. So looking at it on the website, I was like, it kind of makes it look like plastic, and I don't love that. But no, it's aluminum, and this is not actually Cerakoted or anything. This is red anodizing, but it's like a marbled black and red anodizing. Now, Masterpiece Arms is from the great state of Georgia, my home state, and I'd like to think that they made this red grip to celebrate Ferrari's F175 car that is competitive in the 2022 F1 season, and not for the Georgia Bulldogs, but the world may never know. It's Ferrari red, we'll go with that. I really love the luster of the pistol. I mean, it has this nice kind of sheen to it. You can kind of pick up on it right there. Like, it is absolutely gorgeous in person, looks even better in natural light. As far as the grip is concerned, this is a piece that Masterpiece Arms makes themselves. They also make the magwells, so it's not interchangeable maybe with other people's grips or magwells. But I mean, you don't really need them to be changed out. They're perfect out of the box. There are 2 different grips they make. One is a standard, which is what this is, which means the front and back strap have a good bit of bite to it, but the side panels are kind of slick. You would want to use Pro Grip with this type of grip, which isn't a big deal. And in IDPA, you get up to about 45 ounces with an optic and a magazine to make weight. So the gun comfortably makes weight. Now, the gun is going to come with 3 magazines. I'm not sure if they're MBX or Masterpiece Arms. They sent 2 of each for me to test with the gun. So the MBX mags are the gold standard for 2011 guns. This is what I use in my competition gun in USPSA. The steel that they use for the mag bodies is really, really thick. The followers they use are super high quality. Their base pads are also really, really good. That said, the Masterpiece Arms magazines that they're probably shipping the gun with are a little bit nicer on the base pad design. Like, it's just a little bit more handy. It's a little bit smaller. Just feels really, really nice. Last Witness hole says it's got 17 rounds in it. I honestly I didn't even fill them up all the way, so I don't know how many rounds that fit in the tubes. At least 17. But the guns are quite nice. Now, there is a weird thing if you use an Uplula mag loader. The thing will stick on these magazines. I don't know why, but they do. But with the way that they've designed the feed lips on the MPA magazines, they're super easy to load by hand all the way to capacity. If I bothered to count when I was loading mags, I could tell you what that capacity was, but I'm just a legitimate media enterprise. I don't work for a gun blog or something like that. And the reason the base pads are sloped like that is because when they fit the gun in the IDPA box, this allows them to kind of tilt the gun just a bit to make sure it fits in the box, so the more you know. The gun itself is going to ship in this handsome pistol rug. This is really the kind of case you want to carry guns to and from the range. At a match, you want one of these to take the gun out of and put it in when you're done shooting. It's just way better than a plastic box, and this is really nice as far as gun rugs are concerned. So as I mentioned, I am a competition shooter, and I took it to an IDPA match to compete and evaluate it with. And that's where we get to the next piece on why this style of pistol is superior to a single stack gun for competition. But first, the shooting experience was absolutely brilliant. The gun, I had more than one person remark to me, the gun just does not move when you shoot it. It looks super flat. It's a testament to my grip, but it's also just the way that a 2011 is put together. And the reason single action only guns shoot a little bit nicer than their striker fire counterparts is when the hammer falls like that, you now have 2 springs resisting recoil. The first spring is the hammer spring going down into the grip. So as the slide unlocks and moves to the rear, it's going to overcome the much heavier weight of the hammer spring. Generally 17 to 22 pounds was what these will be at. I'm guessing this is about a 17. The recoil spring, because it's a 9mm, is actually quite light. So the spring that shoves the slide back into battery is only probably 8 or 9 pounds. So you get a lot less force returning the gun into battery, so it doesn't porpoise as badly when you shoot it. So it resists all the recoil when the slide opens, and then it just kind of gently eases the slide back into battery for a fast, flat shooting experience. The ergos, as I mentioned, are great with the gun. The double undercut on the trigger guard is fantastic and allows me to really lock in on the pistol. And the first 5 stages I shot of the match, I dropped 0 points, and it wasn't like I was turtling up and shooting points. I don't understand the pace IDPA needs to be shot at, so I was shooting slower than I would in like USPSA, but still, there were plenty of targets where I shot and I was like, yep, there's got to be, nope, there's no one on that target. That's really surprising to me. So it was great until the last stage where I winged a no shoot and dropped 2 points for a total of 7 points down in a 6-stage match, which isn't bad. That's actually pretty good for IDPA. The gun is absolutely brilliant to shoot, and then just shooting slow fire, checking the 0 on the optic and all that stuff, I was stacking hole on hole as you would expect with a high-end 1911, 2011 type gun, and this one is no exception. The gun is just amazingly nice to shoot. It's stupid accurate, it's easy to shoot fast, it will not punish you for bad grips or bad triggers because the way the gun is set up is basically optimum to shoot fast. You might call that a crutch, or you could call it an advantage depending on where you fall in the competitive spectrum. Which is a nice segue to talk about why this style of gun is absolutely ideal for IDPA. Now, Wilson Combat basically just invented a pistol sport because people had made up open guns so that they could continue to sell 1911 pistols, which had fallen out of favor. That's not the official reason why IDPA was started. It was because there was an arms race. So race guns previously in IDPA have been restricted to basically single stack 1911s, and they keep re-engineering the rules to allow those guns to continue to be competitive. Recent evidence is in this rulebook change on Carry Optics and ESP, the 2 divisions that allow 1911s to be shot in. They did not increase capacity to 15 because it would make those guns non-competitive. Even with 10-round capacities, those guns are going to be non-competitive because every stage in IDPA generally is going to require a reload, and a wide body 1911 is just ridiculously easy to reload because the magazines come to the same tapered point that a single stack magazine does, but the opening in the frame is absolutely cavernous, so it's very easy to just throw these into it and get them to seat. It's way easier to reload than a single stack in a game where you have to reload on every single stage. The gun is going to be just as easy to shoot as a 1911, like they're going to be identical in the shooting experience, but when you go to reload them, it's going to be way easier to slam a reload with this gun than it would be a single stack. Now, obviously training can overcome it and you can get really proficient with any platform if you practice enough, but again, if you make something easier, the likelihood of you absolutely screwing it up is much, much smaller. So even if you screw up a load, you're not going to screw it up that bad when it's just this easy to reload. Like, that's just a gigantic magwell. So as I mentioned, why is this a good value? Why would I say a $3,000 pistol is a good value? If you were to buy this from basically any other gun company for pretty much all the same features and all the same specs, you're probably spending $5,000 or $6,000. So at about $3,000, you're paying basically STI type money for a gun that is more fully featured than an STI, or staccato as the cool kids are calling them these days. So this is a gun that is a little bit tighter fit than a staccato with a significantly more refined trigger, given the mission of this is competition and not carry. So they put an absolutely amazing trigger on this, whereas the staccato set up for duty, so they put a heavier trigger that gives more feedback. You make the tool do what the job requires of it, right? So the gun is just, I mean, it's silly nice. The gun is amazing. So I don't shoot a lot of IDPA, but like I'm seriously contemplating paying an invoice and allowing myself to keep this gun as my IDPA gun because I enjoy shooting it so much that when I shoot IDPA, I'd like to be able to shoot a gun like this. It's just, if you're gonna get out there and have fun when shooting, like, why not shoot a gun that makes you excited when you pick it up? Something that you get excited with, about, people want to see it in the safe area. Like, everything about the experience of shooting a 2011 is, I mean, even if you're just used to like Shadow 2s and that's where you think like, that's as nice as handguns get, like, no. You handle one of these and you handle a Shadow 2, and you'll understand why when I call a Shadow 2 a production gun versus this as being like a semi-custom. I mean, one gunsmith puts one of these together versus the machine gets it pretty much all the way there and it's assembled for like a Shadow 2 or whatever. The tolerances are tighter, everything out of the box comes more positive. The material is significantly higher quality. It's all tool steel and billet. It's no MIM or castings or anything like that. This is truly a remarkable shooting machine, and if you're into that kind of thing, then it's, you know, a decent value. But they're not distributed widely, so like their website is how you end up having to get the things, I guess. So for a lot of people, they're going to see what the gun's like when they take the plunge and get one. So that's like probably the one bad thing I can say about the gun, and that's not honestly all that bad, because when you handle the thing, you're like, okay, this is pretty legit. I'm totally happy with this. So that is the DS9 IDPA compliant, or the Aardvark as we're now calling it. If you've got any other questions, throw them in the comments. We'll get them addressed. Otherwise, you might enjoy this video on a more budget-minded IDPA gun, the Canik Rival. I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.